Welcome to GoFamFitsTV. We're your host. I'm Taylor Hoball. This is Zach Schmidt.
So, dude, we're going to be taking some time just trying to learn how to become better male role models. I want to become a better father, wants to become a better future father. So we want to learn from everybody else, learn from each other, and we're going to take the time to do that.
Yeah, facts, man. So, teenage years.
Oh, God. We'll start on the dirty end.
Yeah, right. Well, we talked about it last podcast and everything about we need to bring up some of our teenage years because our teenage years were wild beyond belief. Again, like last episode, we said we've known each other since we were 12. We experienced our whole entire childhood growing up. Mm-hmm. And, we were a little bit different growing up on teenage years. I was a little bit more reckless as far as the things I would intake into my body, the places and the positions I would put myself in.
My parents were a little bit more strict.
Yeah.
They tried to hold me back from some of that stuff while also partaking in the same stuff from holding me back from. So it was kind of pretty funny to see.
Well, they knew how bad it was.
Exactly.
Because they've experienced too. But yeah, but you were a little bit more like conservative in yourself that when, harder drugs like cocaine or something came around, you were like, I don't know. But when we would go to dark side sometimes.
Hey, that ecstasy, man. I was like, cocaine, all these other things, but ecstasy that I'm getting from somebody in a random bathroom in a dark club. Let's fucking go. What an awful decision.
At 16.
At 16 years old,
16, in a club that's meant for surprisingly 17 and older because that's the curfew, but really 18 and older, full of drugs, no alcohol there, but everybody's still drinking. That dude that owned the club would have
pedophile.
Pedophile.
That's why he wanted all the young kids there. I mean, he would bring them back in his office.
We would have like the fake paper. Remember, we used to get Cameron to make the fake paper IDs.
Yep.
And we would all have fake paper IDs, and
nobody would say anything.
No one would say anything, and it was clearly whited out from our 15-year-old permits that we had. Whited out, and then made to say that we had the date of birth, and we would walk up to those bouncers and be like, this is our ID.
I was blessed enough that my older brother looks just like me.
Oh, yeah, you have.
I had his ID. So, but I was 4 years older than what I actually was. So everybody's looking at this ID like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? This isn't you. And I'm like, no, man, I just lost a lot of weight.
You bought cigarettes with it all the time.
Cigarettes. Once we were able to start buying alcohol, was able to do that a few times too. Dude, it's a good part for us to talk about our teenage years because we have a lot of learning experiences. It turned us and molded us into the people we are today, for sure.
It is like really interesting when I'm constantly thinking about my teenage years and how I came up into this like pretty good person. I dropped out. I got a sales job at Farmers Insurance at 18 when everybody was supposed to, like when I was supposed to be in high school. So
right.
I got to learn actual real world stuff and become this amazing person. But it constantly makes me think, do you need those types of things to actually become this cool, interesting, unique kind of person? Or can you do it where you keep, your teen? Because I never want my kids.
Keep a kid a kid.
Dude, not even a kid. Once they're a teenager, they're a teenager. But I never want my kid to even come close to getting into some of the situations that I put myself into that my dad never even, knew I was involving myself around. And it just came to be where he just figured out one day, I'm on all these hard drugs for months on end.
Well, when you and I are both, football in high school and, we're at least 135, 140, we're kind of bulking up a little bit. And then all of a sudden we both stopped playing football. And now we're getting down to 110, 120 in weight. Yeah, the parents were looking at us like, should you guys be hanging out with each other? So
I remember my grandma asking me one time when I was 17 years old, she was like, Taylor, are you doing heroin or something? Because you are so skinny. And I remember that being like, damn, it's getting noticeable.
Very noticeable.
Very noticeable. Very noticeable. How much drugs. And just thinking about it, how much access we had to so many different drugs in our community, from our older friends to our younger friends. I got into, selling weed hard as a teenager.
Yep.
You remember that? Me and Evan, we had the whole suitcase and we had the whole like chest and stuff that you could just raise up, and there's all these different compartments and all these different things and all these little baggies, and we were just, running the game.
Yeah.
And it's just, I was doing that. I mean, my dad was a teacher, and now thinking about it as an adult, how much risk I put my dad in. Doing all those drugs, selling out of his house at such a young age without him knowing about it. But then, if he would have got raided or if something would have happened, he probably would have lost his job because of my dumb ass.
Yeah. Those are big things you got to take into effect. And we don't think about those as teenagers. Shit, we think money grows on a fucking tree.
Yeah.
You know, my kid the other day at 9 years old is asking me to just buy the most unreasonable shit that she knows I probably can't afford, but she's going to ask me for it anyway because she just thinks money comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, hey, Dad, so when I turn 16, you're going to buy me this Mercedes. It's all pinked out, pink wheels, pink rims, pink leather seats, pink dice fuzzies in the mirror and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to get that money from, but here, I'll make you a deal. You get a full ride scholarship to school. I'll buy you your pink Mercedes.
Yeah, so you added up 2 years, you know, at 16, not 16, maybe 18.
Maybe 18 when you go to college. But hey, by 16, if you've already got scholarships, here's your fucking Mercedes.
It's a good point. She's smart. She might be able to do it, but yeah, it's like, you know, you don't want to put that on yourself. I don't know, man. It's just so weird.
You don't. It's a big thing that we as kids don't take into consideration. We're just trying to have fun, and we're trying to think that we're cool kids, and we're doing what any kid out there would do. But logically, not many kids sell weed.
Yeah, but man, I want my kid to have the knowledge of, like, I need to work to get that scholarship.
I thought you were just about to say I want my kid to sell weed.
No. The complete opposite. I want my kid to work, like, him knowing or she knowing to work towards that scholarship and everything, instead of where me and you were just fucking off in every single last round.
At least sell crack. Upgrade a little bit.
So my question and what I'm trying to figure out is, do I tell my kid the same experiences I had? Like, hey, I went through all this, but then is my kid gonna think, yeah. And also, well, you're an amazing father. You're so cool. And all those stories you're telling me kind of sound fun. Why would I not do them? Because I also don't want to tell my kid, you know, like, weed made me a terrible person in life and it did all this bad stuff and blah, because that's not true.
Exactly. You don't want to fear porn them into thinking that.
I still like weed today, you know.
Exactly.
I don't want my kid to, fear porn. I don't want to give my kid fear porn to make them not do that stuff and then be scared, because I still want them to have those experiences.
It's a great thing to go out and try stuff on your own. I think having that instinctual need to want to go do it, that's what we had. I mean, it wasn't the fact, our parents, like we mentioned last podcast, our parents told us not to do that shit.
Yeah.
Like, they literally said, hey, don't fucking smoke weed. Like, and we went out and did it anyway. So we can try to tell our kid, hey, don't go do that stuff. But I think out of just curiosity, want to try. I mean, and we can't.
But what if you find your kid with, like, cocaine? Like, you go into their thing to put their socks up one day and all of a sudden there's cocaine in their drawer. You know, are you over here, okay, I told them all of my experiences, how I went through cocaine, so she's thinking that, okay, it's okay for me to do a little experimentation. Dad, I was just doing what you told me is an okay thing to do, to go out and try stuff and be my own person, and everybody else was doing the cocaine. Are you just giving them that honest conversation like, hey, look, yeah, I did do cocaine, but it wasn't the best, and I realized it's not the best, and it made me get off it fairly quick.
I'm still not doing cocaine right now, so that should be a good inkling.
I'm not doing cocaine anymore, kid.
But hey, let me see that bag.
But it is one of those things, you know, how do you get your kid to not even be involved in that kind of stuff? Because me personally, I would rather my kid have the mindset of, I never want to try this stuff because my dad told me how bad it was and his experiences with it. And so I just want to drive myself to getting to that successful place where he's at now, not on those things, instead of, you know, well, my dad did it and he's a fun guy and he's always seemed so fun, so why am I not going to do it? And then when I do come to that experience with my kid having cocaine in their drawer or something like that, or even having weed in their drawer, you know, how do you because my dad, you know, he was just like,
you just steal it and don't tell him.
Well, no, my dad was, you just steal it and don't tell him. That's what I do.
Because then they got to come to you and be like, fuck, do I ask mom and dad who took my weed? Like, or do I just not say anything and just act like it never happened? Because then you know as the parent.
But you want to talk to your kid about it.
But you want, I mean, obviously approach them at some point. That was honestly a joke, and now it's running through my head, and I'm like, damn, that would actually be a great thing to do to a kid.
Dave Chappelle talks about that, where he, in one of his specials, he talks about finding his son's weed and everything, and then taking it and smoking it, and then his dad or his son comes up or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, that shit's weak," or something. Or he said that shit was really good. I can't really remember, but yeah, he took it and just smoked the weed. and stuff. Didn't really berate his kid, which is, I think, a great thing to do. I don't want to
That's
berate
right.
my kid, and I want to make it like a funny thing, but at the same time,
A life lesson.
I want to make my kid cool, but also understand the boundaries of right and wrong without me being like, well, I fucking did it, and look at me now, I'm doing good. I don't want my kid to look at it that way. So
Yeah.
how do you go about getting around that? Because again, you think about our childhood, you think about our teenage years. Think about us at 16 when we first got our cars. When we were riding in that truck with Tanner and stuff, and we were going around and we would like hit mailboxes like everybody does. Remember that back in the day?
Baseball bat and mailboxes. Hell
Baseball
yeah,
bat and mailboxes, doing all
fun.
that kind of stuff. Like it's so much
Reckless
fun.
little kids.
Reckless, but we got chased when we went to Goatman's Road. We went to Goatman's Road, and then we
Doing
went on
donuts.
that field, and we're doing donuts in that field at 16, and then we're getting chased by a truck with a shotgun. Out of Goatman's.
I mean, if I was a landowner and people kept fucking with my shit, I probably
Doing the
would have
same
done the
shit.
same shit. Like I can't fault the guy for doing that, but oh man, that you want to keep an eye on what your kids are doing. I would imagine that's how I'm probably going to approach raising my kid when she gets into these teenage years. Like I want to keep a close eye on what you're doing, but as also it's different between raising, I think, what would be a male and a female. I think I got very blessed to have females because I want my daughter to make independent decisions. I want her to be able to see things through a different lens than most people do because I'm a man. I can approach you on how to be a good person,
Yeah.
but essentially how to be a good woman. I need you to go to your mom for those. I need you to go to other good role model women for those types of things. I can be that father figure for you for a strong structure, but I don't know anything else beyond that. Like, I don't have experience in teenage girls. The most I have experience with a teenage girl is how do I get inside of a teenage girl? That was my mindset most of my life growing up.
Or like dealing with my
Not
sister.
my mindset now, I swear to God.
When you're a teenager, that's what you're thinking about, man. You're like, let me just make this clear.
Just clear, that is not my mindset anymore.
I am interested into getting grown women.
Grown women, cougars now. That's
But
my
when
thing.
I was
No,
a teenager,
I promise, honey, that's not my thing.
Well,
you were
don't
my
get me wrong,
only
though.
cougar.
When you were a teenager, though, you were also looking at those cougars.
Hey,
like,
you know what? I wouldn't have minded.
some of your friends' moms, man.
I criticize now the teachers that sleep with students, but when I was a teenage boy, that was my dream. We had so many teachers where it was like,
teachers.
this is a possibility. This could happen.
The cheerleading coach, I'm not going to give the name, but that cheerleading coach, and she was 24.
We're all hormonal boys. What do you
20
expect?
And I think about it now.
How young she was coming into a high school.
She's probably 30. She's probably 34 now. 34 and 20 seems super reasonable. It seems super reasonable.
24 and 18 isn't very unreasonable.
Yeah, it's just.
I wouldn't consider that too creepy, but she had a husband, those types of things. There was never anything that happened out of it, so.
But you think about that stuff. We're digressing.
We're digressing. We're digressing.
We are now thinking about the cheerleading coach at high school instead of the topic at hand.
The topic at hand is look at how fucked up teenagers are, okay? Us teenage boys, all we were worrying about was, excuse my language here, but getting our dick wet. That was the main thing.
Yeah, but you're saying you're more blessed with girls, but
we don't have to worry about that
because you don't recognize and you don't get their perspective because you never had to deal with them.
Exactly. Thank you for getting me back on track. Yeah, I squirrel very easily.
You're fine.
So yes.
But real quick, if you don't mind me asking, don't you kind of think that it has to be your ability to go out and actually, learn those things to then be able to guide it? Because God forbid, if something ever does happen, because it happens all the time, happened to your wife and it was just you, now you're like,
I'm fucked.
Okay, I am now the male and female role model in this woman's life. I have to give her, you have to now put yourself in a perspective of, okay, if I was mom, and maybe you have to do that even now with her, with her being around. Sometimes she's at work, sometimes this, and your daughter comes up to you. Maybe she doesn't want to talk to your mom.
Right.
And because maybe she feels closer to dad and she wants to come up to you and you don't really know about it. Is it not your job to go out and figure out what it is that she might be processing and thinking and coming into it in, those mom shoes.
Well, that's where we got together with a lot of this whole point. I want to be proactive in these situations. I don't want to be reactive. I don't want to wait for my...
learn.
Exactly. I don't want to wait for my ship to hit the rocks and then start saying, hey, there's fucking rocks up ahead.
Yeah.
I want to learn beforehand because she's not at that age yet where I deal with her little school spats with her little 9-year-old friends. 9-year-old shit. Nothing too crazy right now. But then I know there's going to be a time where those teenage years come up, periods start, things like that I just don't know about.
How she gets crushed by boys or, so many. Because when I looked at my little sister growing up in her teenage years and all the things that she was dealing with compared to the things that I was dealing with, it's so much different. And as a brother, you don't...
You just want to go kick the kid's ass.
Yeah, you want to go kick the kid's ass. But also as like a teenage boy and a brother, you don't even want to deal with it at the same time. You're like,
it's not your drama.
That's her problems. That ain't my problems. Because, as teenagers, you're in that weird conflict. And me and my sister as teenagers were very close. But even still, when she just had a boy problem, like you said, I would go, and she used to hate me for this, but I would go up to the boy and just be like, you're about to get your ass kicked, buddy.
Exactly.
And he would never talk to her again. It works every time, But... I don't want to be that guy,
No. And you definitely don't want to be that type of parent either.
Yeah, you don't want to be that type of parent that's calling the boy that just hurt your daughter's feelings and being like, what the did you just do to my little girl? I can't believe this, blah, blah, blah.
You're showing up at the house and fist fighting with the dad out in the front yard or some bullshit like that.
Oh my God, there was one time when I was 12 years old with the girl in 7th grade, the first time I ever really fooled around with a girl.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And that dude went around telling everybody.
This is right when we became friends too. Yeah, I remember this.
This was 7th grade. And the dude went around telling everybody, and then the parents found out at a football or at a soccer game that she was at that I was with the parents watching her play soccer. And then the mom starts asking us and berating us about it. And then we get taken home and the dad gets called over to my house. And my dad comes out there, and these parents are having this girl explain, which is not the right way to go about it. They had this girl, instead of me doing it, I got to go inside and hide, like a little scaredy cat.
Right.
I didn't have to stay out there. But this girl had to explain to my dad what me and her did. Which is so not okay.
No.
It's so not okay. And then this dad is also hearing it. Her dad is also hearing it for the first time.
Oh, so he's getting fired up.
He's getting fired up and also, gagging. He is visibly holding onto my basketball post, gagging, hearing about what his daughter did. And I'm over here thinking about it. I don't want my kids at 12 years old doing that kind of stuff, getting into those situations, because I know it's going to happen eventually. But at 12, that's a little young. And if I was a father, I would also be extreme.
I don't know if I'd be gagging.
He was gagging, man. He was straight gagging over it.
About to throw up. Was it do you think it was emotions, so emotional he was about to throw up, or he was just so disgusted by it that he was going to throw up?
A little bit of both. And
don't make your daughter explain what happened. I mean, yeah, obviously, but don't make your daughter explain it.
Don't you think the mom should have been like, hey, so I found this thing out to the dad, and dude, this mom put her daughter and the dad in a big spotlight in front of my dad, where my dad just came in and he was like, what the fuck you doing, bro? He came in and was like, no. He gave me a little smile. He kept, that's probably in his head a little bit, okay,
hey, my boy.
My boy's getting it. But at the same time, my dad was like,
Dude, you're fucking 12.
Yeah, dude, you're 12. What are we doing here? Why are you going into girls' pants? Why are they going into your pants? Why are these things happening under both of our roofs? That was a big thing because he would let her over, and of course.
So you feel as a responsibility as a parent to watch what's happening when they're there. I get that.
And we broke up next day. And don't get me wrong, it's my fault. Teach your kids that if they do stuff with women, shut the fuck up about it.
Shut up.
Don't tell your friends. Silence is better because
silence is gold.
When you're a teenager, you can't trust anybody.
Nobody.
You can't trust nobody.
Nobody.
And I promise you that secret will get out, and that girlfriend will break up with your kid because your kid's a loudmouth like I was, and you just want to be in the locker room being like, guess what I
Or you're going to have a father sitting there the whole time like...
Yeah, definitely. I want to make my son, if I have a son, I want to make him just understand at a young age just how to actually play the social game and not put yourself in a, like, always, how I do it. I never put myself where, even when I was drinking, I never got too drunk. I never want to be that overly drunk guy. I've never wanted to be that guy that doesn't look like he has control, or the guy that is yelling, kicking stuff violently. I always want to be presented as respectful. Mm-hmm. But when I was a teenager, that doesn't even come close to who I was. When I was in school, I was a piece of crap with all of my teachers. I was always on drugs in high school. I was always skipping class. I was always going home, smoking cigarettes, getting with girls, leaving, coming back, getting in trouble, then dropped out of high school. Yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Bring me back to it. But with that being said, how do you make your kid, that's what it is. How do you make your kid just not, put themselves in those kind of positions to be that fucktard, I guess? I lost my train of thought.
No,
because I started thinking about how bad I was as a kid compared to...
Well, I know where you were going. It was the matter of these sexual situations that you were in at this age. And,
oh, yeah.
And I don't think they were handled in the best way by the
parents. Yeah, that's
what
it is. I got off on saying teach your kid. Yeah, that's what it is. I just want my son to be able to play this social environment and be respectful and want to be presented as respectful. When I just want my kid to know at the mindset, of 10, 12, whatever the case may be, that if I represent myself in a certain class, in a certain type of way, other people will then like me more and see me more as that character that they can come to, that they can involve in different activities and different groups. Because you don't want your kid to be that person that gets outcasted because they're the annoying one, they're the loud one, they're the shitheads in the group, where friends are like, but if we invite Bobby, Bobby's going to make a situation where everybody feels uneasy. And, he's
we had a situation. We had a situation like that with our oldest, Ella, in school. She had a boy in school who just this last year, just in third grade. These kids are in fucking third grade.
Yeah.
They had to move this kid out of her class. It got so bad. So she's kind of always dealt with a little bit of bully. She's a very cute, good-looking girl.
The kid was just being a bully.
I mean, not even necessarily being a bully. He was being very sexual. And in the third grade was like talking about penises and all that type of stuff. And,
openly in class.
Openly. Being very, very inappropriate to multiple girls in the class. And so she came and told us about it, which made me feel really good as a parent that she felt it was necessary to come and tell me as a father that is that normal for a little boy to act like that? And I'm like, well, yes, but not in a public setting. Like, if you keep asking him to stop and he won't stop, then something else is not registering in his head like he needs to stop.
Yeah, especially when that kid gets to 7th, 8th grade, if she's still in the same exact grade with him, in the same class with him, and it's just progressing more and more. What is this kid going to develop into?
So this was a great thing. I think this is actually one of my happiest school reaction moments that we've had out of this whole situation. So we told the teacher. It was handled very well. The teacher approached the child. They met with the parents. They did everything. It ended up actually happening again. So they did end up taking the kid and moving him into the class over, so it would just hopefully kind of separate it. Well, he was in the after-school program with my daughter as well. I can't escape these after-school programs, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They are now best friends. They love each other. He does not act inappropriately towards them, because you want to know what it was?
Yeah.
They taught the kid. He wasn't being taught appropriately at home, which I'm probably assuming his parents at home are maybe very overly sexual with each other, or the dad...
They're probably watching a lot of stuff that says these and...
Exactly. So he's copying what he's seeing, but then he gets into this public setting with other people who have different views and opinions, and they're like, hold the phone, dude, you are getting way too intense with this. And the school educated him. Yeah. They sat him down, they brought the parents in and said, look, we really need to focus on this, because the last thing we want is your child at the age of 8 or 9 having to register as a sex offender for whipping his wang out in school or something like that, you know?
That's crazy to think about it in 3rd grade.
In 3rd grade.
Yeah. But you know what, man? I remember in 3rd grade seeing American Pie for the first time. It was like 2nd or 3rd grade that I saw American Pie for the first time. And I very much remember being with my friends, reenacting, being with, that group of girls down the street that we used to hang out with, all the Kleins, and reenacting those kind of things where it's like, it's so inappropriate, but as a child, you're finding it so funny.
Yeah.
You're finding it so beyond funny.
You don't see the sexual side of it.
Because it's the first time you ever heard the word vagina. Or it's the first time you ever, heard the word titty.
Exactly.
You never knew the word titty, and then you hear it, and you tell your friend, yeah, have you heard this new word titty? What's a titty? It's a woman's boob.
A boob.
A boob? Wait, so the nipple? Yeah, that's a titty.
That's a titty.
Adults call them titties, and then you walk up to, I remember that song, Pimp Juice. They only want me for my pimp juice. And me and, which is semen. By the way, guys, it's semen, which is pimp juice. I didn't know that. It is.
It is?
Yeah. She only wants me for my pimp juice.
29 years old, guys. I'm still learning new shit every day.
But me and my buddy Hunter in the 2nd, 3rd grade, we used to walk down the hall singing that one line.
I'm calling it that all the time now.
I'm calling it semen. It's pimp juice.
It's pimp juice.
Yeah, wifey, take my pimp juice.
I'm going to teach my child that growing up now.
Stay away from those boys, pimp juice, little girl.
You just watch out. So when a man loves a woman, he inserts his penis and then ejaculates his pimp juice. That's how I want the schools to teach it. Pimp juice.
That was the fucking most awkward thing. We do not support those views on this channel.
I definitely support calling semen pimp juice. I'm down to medically change the name and everything.
Pimp juice?
To just pimp juice. I want scientists, doctors, everything. What seems to be the problem, sir? I think I'm shooting blank pimp juices over here. Shooting blanks, man.
I'm not getting no pimps into my woman.
My juice ain't pimping, okay?
My juice. I got pimpusless juice.
This is all right. We're gonna make that a movement, but back to our story. I apologize.
You're fine, but we used to walk down the hall all the time, and we'd be singing that song. Well, she only want me for my pimp juice, and I had no clue what it meant, and my teachers would be like, "No, stop saying that," and we'd be like, wait, why? Why do we have, and they would just be like, go ask your parents. They wouldn't even tell us, That's how it used to be. It used to be like that. Go ask your parents. And we asked Hunter's dad. Hunter's dad is he was such a cool dad back then because he had all these dirt bikes and he would buy us all these unicycles and would build us ramps.
You guys were like, he knows what pimp juice is.
Yeah. Well, we found his porn magazines one time, and that's the next story. But we found his porn magazines one time, so we knew he was cool. We knew he knew what pimp juice was. So we wanted to investigate. So we went up to him, and this is a 6'11" man. He's 6'11". He's tall as everything in life, just like Hunter is now. But we walked up to him with our little bodies, and we looked at him with his dick in our head. His dick was head level with our fucking heads, and we were just like, hey Tad, what's pimp juice? And he was like, well, y'all aren't able to do it yet. So direct into it. Well, y'all aren't able to do it yet, but...
Oh, my God. Please don't tell me he whips out his dick next, because it seems like he's being very direct about it.
No, that thing just like Shaq would have slapped me across the face. No, promise you. This man used to fart in jars, close the jars, come to Hunter's room, and then just run out. I swear to God. And he had to be close to 40 at the time.
Oh my God.
This is why we knew
6'11"
he knew
child.
what pimp juice was, because he knew what fart jars were. But yeah, he was like, you can't do it yet, but one day, stuff's going to come out of your penis that isn't pee. That's pimp juice. That's all he said! And walked away like a fucking gangster. And I was still even more scared now. But I thought pimp juice was something cool cats would drink to become cooler, And then women would want you for that drink. I didn't know the drink was not going to be my pee, but something else coming out of my peen.
Yeah, don't drink that.
You don't want to drink that, but the women, they might want it. It has zinc in it.
Zinc.
Pimp juice has zinc. It has vitamins. But I think...
Can we bottle it and sell it?
But I think the main point of this is like when you're a kid and you hear something for the first time that is the funniest thing you have ever heard in your life that you did not know meant something, all you want to do is... So it may not have been that kid being this like weird sexual act. He just heard the word penis and vagina for the first time in a funny way.
And it was funny to him.
And he was like, this is going to be funny to everybody
else. Exactly. He's like, I'm going to make everybody else laugh.
My dad and mom were cracking up to this. So, yeah, maybe watch what you watch in front of your kids. But then again, sometimes, you know, you also don't want your kid, just like Ella, how she's so witty, funny, like she has this way of being able to communicate with you. I think it's because you do also allow her to watch some of those things. Mm-hmm. And you do speak to her like you speak to your mom or you speak to me in front of her like you normally would. You know, you don't censor everything. You don't bleep out all the cuss words. You don't talk in a way that you're just like, okay, well, let me dumb everything down for her. So she kind of gives it. So you kind of want that.
She gets
you kind of want them to watch it because I don't feel like my dad would have never let me watch American Pie. It's only because I watched that in another person's house.
Right. You got to find the parent. You got to find the friend with irresponsible parents.
And that was the first time too I ever saw a pair of like tits in a movie. And I remember when the dude ejaculated into the beer. And like seeing that beer that then Stifler drank with the semen in it, with the pimp juice in it.
Pimp juice, yeah, there you go. See, correct, politically correct.
I want to be politically correct here. With the pimp juice in it. And Stifler drinks it. I remember for years wondering what that was. It wasn't until I watched it again in my teenage years where I was actually, you know, jacking off all the time.
You're like jacking off and you're like, wait a second.
It's like, wait a minute, I see that arm movement.
Oh, you know what? We're actually not allowed to do that movement. We're gonna have to cut that out. We can't do that movement on video.
We can't?
No, we can't. That's a no-no.
That's a no-no on videos?
That's a no-no on videos.
Know what I'll do? Is I'll blur it out.
There you go.
Can I do that for a second?
I would just not put that video part in it because, yeah, you definitely don't want to show the sexual sides of it. I've seen it get banned on a couple other shows before. Which is really funny because we can talk about and do all these other sexual things about children, but a man making a jack-off gesture is apparently too offensive. You know, we can talk about kids getting their breasts and possibly, but that's also a white supremacy symbol as well, so probably not.
Well, know what? I'm going to let you know Wait, what? This is a white supremacy?
Yeah, apparently.
This is to hit somebody in the arm if they look at you.
That's white power.
No, this is the asshole. ASS hole.
Yeah, right. But you see the W, and then it also makes a P. White power. You're a fucking racist. Congratulations.
Wait a minute. I'm just doing this.
Wow, bro! I didn't realize that you supported racism.
This is gonna get clipped up bad. This is gonna get really clipped up bad. Wait, this is now.
We can cut all of that out.
No, I don't want to cut that part out. This is now.
We might actually get in trouble for putting that hand symbol on there.
Really?
I would just black out. I would black out the entire screen and just let still have our audio in there and just be like, "Yep, no camera visual of it," because you guys know what we're doing, but you can't see it because they will cut your video out, bro. I swear.
Okay, yeah, well, that's so weird. Okay, well, the hand signal I was making was the asshole one that you hold on your leg. Now that we're back,
okay sign essentially.
Now that we're back in shot, because apparently we had to blur that whole thing out. Is that symbol just represented a funny thing in every single movie throughout time. I think it got created in the 60s, I'm not sure, where if you look down at someone's leg and that symbol's going on, you just punch them. So
it's damn far-right activists, you know.
They just turn that on us? Because I heard the peace symbol now is, like, stands for something. Just doing the peace sign, which I'm not taking this down. This is a good, solid, love your people. I got a peace sign right up here, man. Let's go. Peace fingers, man.
I don't think that would be...
Peace, love, and Greece, bro. You know why Greece? Because Greece is good.
It is pretty good. Greece is good. It is good. But I don't know why it's such a big thing that they have to censor everything. I think that's one thing we're wanting to do is talk about controversial stuff and not really care about being censored. Now, like, we're going to censor ourselves in that situation because we want people to hear our shit, and you can't hear our shit if it's being banned because we're fucking idiots.
That's so weird that symbol means that now, because I have not heard that.
I always thought it was just the Nazi Sieg Heil thing, where you just stick your arm out and wave at people, was always kind of the white power thing.
Yeah,
like, we never really had.
Why is like the funniest thing that males do to each other get turned into that kind of thing?
Because the internet, bro. Because of the fucking internet.
Because
literally is why it became a hate symbol, is because people on the internet on like 4chan or 8chan or whatever the fuck it was, came out and they were like, oh, hey, let's make it a joke that this symbol is a white supremacy symbol. And that's what they did.
I fucking hate that, bro.
And then everybody agreed with it.
I hate that because it's just such a funny thing to do. To me, it's like, I don't know one friend that if I did that to, they would think anything else other than I'm about to get punched in my arm.
Probably our generation, yes. But if you did it to a younger kid, they would be like, wow, I can't believe you're a racist.
No, I'm not going to lie, man. I'm going to go up to my nephew and I'm going to do that. And right when he looks down, I'm just going to punch him right in the arm and be like, that's what it represents, nothing else.
Yeah, but then don't go get him in trouble. See, this is what we're talking about, the bad influences on kids. Now everybody's going to think he's a white supremacist going around. But
no, they're not. They're going to be like, what are you, from the 60s?
It's going to take it's going to take the one moment for him to walk up to a minority kid, do that hand symbol, and then punch him in the arm and be like, wow, look at that. That kid's racist. Literally. Because they're going to be like, wow, he did a white supremacy symbol and then beat that child.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either,
but
that's the way society could look at it. So you definitely you want to be cautious about what you teach.
So dumb to me, the fact that...
But I guarantee you that would actually happen. That's the sad part about it. If you were to just teach your nephew, hey, this is this funny little symbol, and if somebody looks at it, and then you punch him, but then he does it to like one of his friends who happens to be a minority.
That know about it.
And now all of a sudden he's a racist because he made a white power symbol and then punched a minority.
This is again so dumb, the amount of things you have to know to not be like phobic around whatever the case may be.
There's so many phobias now that you can have.
Dude, and it's like there's so many symbols.
It's the fear of everything. You got to press that fear into people or else you can't have that
symbols,
much.
Man. Yeah, that's going to scare me growing up because I want to teach my kid so many of the funny things that I've learned in life that my dad, because when my dad was a kid, that meant the same thing.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it meant the same thing. It's just so stupid for something so funny to be turned around into that kind of direction. I don't know. I absolutely hate that. I really hate that. If that's the case and that symbol means that, and we actually have to blur it off because I can't make that symbol, which is either an okay, I promise you, which is an okay symbol. Yeah. It's either like, hey guys, okay, and everything.
Now you gotta blur that out too.
No, I'm not. I don't think I am. I don't think I am.
I will tell you now. You probably you won't have to.
Maybe the gesture of me jacking off,
that has to go. I know for a fact that has to go.
I understand. But
I know for a fact.
The fact that kind of symbol, because even when you're talking, so many people are just like, yeah, when it goes, I do that all the time. I'll just be talking and my hands go into that because it's like an okay motion and stuff. It's just like, yeah, guys, this is okay.
Yeah, bro, you're just inherently racist.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't know. I really don't think so.
You really can't. You can't please everybody. There's going to be somebody that's going to be all fucking offended.
Well,
Like,
how are you supposed to be able to teach your kids now all the freaking funny jokes and just be a normal funny person? Because I don't want my kid to be like constantly like, what can I do? What can I not do? What can I do? What can I not do?
That is every kid nowadays. Oh my God. That is literally every kid nowadays. They're so terrified.
How do you teach your kids to get away from that bullshit?
As a parent, I don't even know how to tell you that. It's so tough for me to have to explain things to my child and know that she has her own opinion that's formed off of other people's teaching. So it's like I'm trying to explain it to her and she's kind of going back and forth with me on it. And I'm like, but no, that's not correct.
Yeah.
But in her mind, well, that is correct. And it's, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I want to teach her a good way to approach these types of things and maybe tell her that that's not true. But society and everybody else has taught her, like, you should be fearful of that. Don't do that. Don't make those gestures. Don't say those types of things. And it's like, there's certain things that you can say out there that actually aren't bad, and people just get offended for no fucking reason whatsoever.
I don't want my kid to constantly be teetering around everything they say. I want them to have a voice.
Exactly.
And I want them to have this comedic gesture to them. I just think it's so, I don't know, I think it's so dumb that you got to teeter around everything that symbol would represent anything else other than okay and then getting punched. And I don't know, I guess like anybody can pick up a symbol and start using it as something, but just now to say that symbol represents that one thing, which is probably the smallest of margins of dumb people with dumb thoughts in their head, dumb ideologies in their head.
Absolutely.
Small minority where everybody else in the different countries, everything use that, because I think it's even in sign language. That in sign language is okay, right? That's the word for okay.
It is.
In sign language, is it not?
It is.
So that's a universal language for everything. Now you're taking away, so now you're calling sign language, like deaf people that use sign language
racist
constantly, every time they use that in a public setting.
They're either gang members or they're racist.
Dude, so if someone's sitting from across a park and you see this deaf couple talking to each other.
Right.
And this deaf couple's talking about, hey, you want to go to the pond? And she's like, that sounds great. That sounds okay, yeah. In a deaf format, now they're thinking that that's a racist gesture. I don't know, man. I just think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I agree with you, and I think that's where
I hate that.
I hate a lot of stuff from where we are today, because everything is offensive. I can't be a proper father without offending somebody I can't have my own values and beliefs without being called a misogynist or a bigot or any of these types of things. It's like I'm raising young women, to grow up and be these independent individuals. And maybe because I don't agree that once my daughters get into high school that they should be playing sports with boys.
Yeah.
And competing with boys, because I want them to learn good, fresh competition and how it's like in the real life out there when you compete with somebody. And I could be labeled as some type of gist or whatever, misogynist, transphobist, or whatever it could be, because I don't agree that I think my daughter should have every equal opportunity to compete for something, and because some boy couldn't compete with the rest of the boys, now he wants to go and compete with the girls and beat all of them and take that spot away from another female who could have very easily been that champion, been that first place person.
Yeah.
That is something that I fear as a parent, but I can't have that fear openly without people being like, well, you're some type of phobist because you over here, you don't agree with that. And it's like, well, no, I don't. I think my daughter should be able to compete with other females to be the best female.
Yeah. And you don't want her losing out on scholarships.
I don't want her losing out on any opportunities, because there is, and I have nothing against it. Let everybody identify and do whatever they want to do. That's not my problem. But when it impedes my daughter or my kids from being able to move forward and achieve something,
that's when you have a problem.
That's when I have a problem with it. I came in a very different type households. One side was very conservative, one side was very liberal. Mm-hmm. So when we had this last administration in the office, I was kind of middle ground with it. I started to lean a little bit more towards in support of it, but I had my very liberal side of the family telling me like, oh, you're going to ruin your daughter's lives in the future. I can't believe you would support this type of stuff when you have two daughters, And now I look at the liberal side of it, and it's like, well, if I supported that side, I'm taking opportunities away from my daughter now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what side do I support when it comes to those types of things? Because one side maybe feel like they're taking.
I just don't get why it has to be a political thing. Why can't it just be like, let's look at it
as a humanity thing?
From a humanity thing, is it good to be pushing that kind of narrative so young, and then also taking away opportunities, taking away advantages, because if you have a school with 16 transitioned women that all are wanting to play basketball, is now that team, because they're the taller, they're the bigger ones, is that whole team gonna be the varsity starting squad?
Right.
And all those girls that would have been varsity, now they're the junior varsity, and they're playing, or they're backups to these other people. And now this one team, probably coming out of California or something, but this one team is dominating all the other girls in the region. And that's strictly because, parents are like, oh, I want my kid to be ahead in athletics, and they're also transgender, and we're going to put them in sports and everything, and this one school particularly are really good with it, and we know they're going to put our daughters in the sports, so we're going to all transition our kids into this school. And that kind of thing happens.
It does. It's happening more and more. I mean,
it's
you see
more
and more kids are identifying as these types of things and stuff. So as that continues in the future, I mean, the more that society just lays down and allows it to happen, there's going to be more that do it. It's the cool thing to do nowadays, to be gay or trans or whatever in any type of way. And the younger that you're able to identify and be that way, the more attention and cooler you're going to get. Yeah. So whereas parents, future parents, things like that, how do we approach those situations with kids to not say, hey, hate these people? Because we don't want our children to ever hate anybody. We want them all to respect everybody in their own way. But how do we maybe approach them and say these outside influences aren't always going to be the best influences?
And also, how do you approach them? And because it's going to happen when they are joining that sport and something like that does happen, how do you explain to them, like, yes, this person may succeed and do a lot better than you because they have a lot more physical attributes that are going to help them out in this particular sport. So when you feel like you're not doing as good as you can because you see this person outperforming you every step of the way because they have the genetics and the biology to do so, how do you explain to your child, like, hey, you're doing the best you can, you're just put in a not fair situation,
right?
But then she can't go to school and
complain about that.
Be like, hey, this really isn't fair.
Exactly.
Because now she's just going to be kicked off the team and outcasted.
We see it happening all the time everywhere.
And that scares, being a person that has no kids, and I'm wanting kids, that right there scares me because I think about it all the time, like, am I just going to homeschool my kids?
Right.
Because and put them in sports that I know are being done correctly and, with the correct people put in place. So
it's hard.
Am I going to have to go and find all those things, or can I just trust the public school system to evolve to not have me worry about those things like we didn't have to worry? Because isn't there a law that makes it where women have to have the equal opportunity of sports? They passed like back in the 80s or 70s or something.
I mean, there's
a law that every school has to provide the same types of sports that they provide for men for women as well, is what I'm trying to say. Or at least the same amount. Like, so if men have wrestling at this school, then the girls are going to have volleyball at that same school or something to kind of equal it out.
Right.
And now when you're just transitioning into that other way, I personally want my kid to get a lot of social experience at a young age. And I would love to be able to put my kid in a public or a private school, maybe not a public school, but, a private school, or in which I hate to say, because again, my dad's been a teacher for 30 years now.
Right.
And, he is that old school amazing teacher and everything, but he still sees all those young teachers coming in and they teach in a very different way, which probably isn't a bad thing. There probably needs to be a lot of changes in the school system to make that education better, because I remember I personally did not like school. I did not like the style of teaching. It never went good with me. I feel much more intelligent and smarter, and I learned so many things after I got out of school because I went to go learn those things in the way I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make me question, what's the right way? Because I don't want my kid to go into a private or a public school and face that kind of situation and then speak up on it, and now she's just completely outcasted from doing any of those things.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't agree with that particular, situation. I just don't want that.
Tough.
Where back in the day, it seemed like when me and you were kids, we had like the whole school board, and you were like a president or a vice president on the school board, and y'all would actually come together and talk about things. And
like student council, you mean?
Yeah, student council.
I was about to be like, if I was 15 years old, vice president on the school board,
but student council, and it seemed like, y'all used to get together and be able to talk about those things and talk about what's right, what's wrong. I don't know if that happens.
I don't know if there
now.
is still student councils in school.
And if there is student councils, I just feel like they probably, lean very hard one way on these.
I feel like they try to just focus on probably like kids' social rights in school.
Yeah,
like,
which is weird to me. Why are kids at 14, 15 just constantly thinking about social rights instead of it being like, guys, we're all here, we're all loving each other, we're all doing it. No one's being this way, no one's being that way. We're able to do it. If you're a boy, you're playing in the boy sports. If you're a girl, you're playing in the girl sports and everything. And look, if you are a boy that's transitioning into a woman, I remember girls playing on the boys football team.
Mm-hmm. There was like that chick that went to college football and kicked for the college football team. She went to our high school.
Yeah.
Like, so that was a thing.
Yeah, but it's like, why, so that's another question is why can the girl come play on the boys sport and try it out, but the guys can't? So maybe I'm very hypocritical in that sense, because I remember thinking it was cool when we had that girl when we were in 8th grade, she was in 7th grade, she was trying out to be a kicker because she was a badass soccer player.
She ended up going to college and being a college kicker.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We all thought that was badass, but now when we look at it in the opposite sense, it's not that badass. That's weird. It's not that weird because we have a lot more like physical attributes that help us out in sports.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but it does seem awkwardly hypocritical.
Well, I think it was badass for her to be able to go out there and take a step up from where they are physically. I don't think it's badass for a man to take a step down. And like, that's like me going out onto a basketball court with, yes, it's a bunch of other boys, but it's 8th grade boys, and I'm a 30-year-old dude over here dunking on them on a basketball, on an 8-foot rim, and I'm dunking on them and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, let's go, and I'm taking it so seriously.
Kind of the same thing.
It's the same thing. I'm going to overpower you guys. We can make it 5-on-1, and I'll still probably win.
Yeah, because you do see those soccer matches of like
100 kids versus like 3 professionals.
Yeah, like it's like the Australian team, the women's team that versus those 15-year-old boys.
And they got their asses whooped.
They got their asses whooped like 7-0. And so, yeah, you do kind of look at that and you're like, yeah, there's definitely an unfair advantage there. So I guess you're allowed to think about it differently. But it does, like, I can definitely see how people are, that's hypocritical in a big way. But at the same time, is it hypocritical in a big way? Because if a boy punches my daughter, I'm probably going to go kick that boy in the face.
I'm going to go break his legs.
Yeah, something like that. But if a boy that's a woman punches my daughter, am I now punching a little girl? Probably not. I'm punching a little boy, right?
I'm going to go break his legs.
People are going to look at me worse because they're going to be like, well, it was just a girl hitting a girl. It's just a little girl fight. Well, not really.
Not really.
It's not a little girl fight. It's this.
Well, and we're seeing stuff like that happen more often now in schools where it is a transgender or maybe even just a homosexual boy that is attacking a female, and they're doing damage to these girls because they're just so much bigger and stronger than them, and they're getting head trauma, broken bones, blood, scratch cuts.
I have seen some of those
and
things.
You're going to see that same type of thing every time. It's not very often that you're going to see a woman overpowering a man. It's just... Yeah. It doesn't happen very often. So we got a little bit off track with all of it.
Well, no, we didn't get off track, I think. It's one of those things, how are we making our kids feel successful in school with
we got to be involved as parents.
With all of these things that are just going to berate your kids, because it started, with that gesture of just being the okay gesture. Mm-hmm. It started with that, and now that's a thing where kids are going to be berated, and we went into the girl thing of just not being able to speak out. How do you make your kids feel like they can, have that voice,
express their opinions without being ostracized?
When having a voice is such a bad thing now. Such a terrible thing.
Unless it's a voice for social justice rights. Then they want to hear you.
But I just want my kid to be able to speak up on their opinion and not be shut down in every way because, no, that's not the norm right now. Okay, well, it's not the norm right now, but, vaccines being good were the norm, and now vaccines being good are maybe not so much the norm and everything. Masks used to be a good norm. Now masks aren't so much a good norm.
Things change.
There's all these things coming out how, it might be worse for the development of a kid. And might be worse for your breathing to wear one for more than a few hours a day. Mm-hmm. And we were wearing them all for 8 hours a day at one point in time, and that was so things change. So I just don't want my kid to never be able to speak up, but also I don't want my kid to speak up and then get hated on.
Well, that's where we kind of touched on it last podcast too, was you want your kid to be confident in those moments of change. You kind of want to train them to accept those moments of change so they don't enter into this like form of comfortability almost. That's what I want to try to achieve with my kid. Like, I want you to expect things to be different every single day.
Yeah.
And so when something comes up and you're like, whoa, you're not so much of, whoa,
Yeah.
you know, you're not Hillary Clinton watching the balloons fall out on the stage. Whoa! You're just more kind of, a based and grounded person, and you understand what's happening and you know how to navigate through that without feeling so lost. And I think a lot of kids now just go with the flow. They follow the leader. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't want to set that mold for my kid. And how do I break that mold? I don't know necessarily, because I'm not just tackling what my child believes, because she is a little person. She has her own opinions. But I'm also tackling what society is trying to throw at her as well. So she's going to develop her own beliefs over time. Society's going to help try to shape and mold those beliefs. I want to try to help shape and mold beliefs. And it's like, I'm looking at a little Frankenstein clay figure of something, and I'm like, this isn't making any fucking sense.
Yeah.
I'm teaching her one thing, and she's doing the exact opposite. I'm teaching her one thing, and society's telling her to do the exact opposite. So how the fuck do I find common ground where I don't seem like I'm trying to be some extreme parent, but I also don't want to make it seem like society's just some shitty place to be?
And it's also like we were talking about on the last episode, you know, the amount of time you actually have with your kid to find out what's going on in their daily life, what they learned, what they, you know, what they were thinking about that day, what kind of, you know, social environments happen to them that may have affected them in a negative or in a positive way. You only have such little time in a day. So yeah, it's like during those little hours that you actually have, you have to be, you know, more of like, what is going on? What is happening? Tell me, because I don't want to be that way.
Right. You don't want to be a hovering parent, and every single second of the day you want to know what they're doing, what they're learning, what they're discussing.
Yeah, you got to let them be free.
You got to let kids be kids for a little while, but you also do want a little bit of information about what's going on. So maybe asking some of those tougher questions to them about not just, hey, what did you learn today, but give me some details about what you guys discussed today. And don't tell me that you just, we did some math, we read a story. Like, oh, that's awesome. What was the story about?
Yeah.
I don't think we get deeper into those things enough with kids, because that's opinions that those kids are being read in that story. They're learning something by reading that story. Figure out what it was. Ask them a question. That's what I want to try to do with my child, because I've been a little absent in that sense, I think, for a good while of trying to really dive in. Like, what are you learning? What are those types of things? And now that she's 9 years old, she's formed very hard opinions. So, you know, like I mentioned, there's things that her and her mom go back and forth about and butt heads, because she's formed these very strong opinions about something, and maybe I wasn't there, mom wasn't there to maybe mold it into the correct type of way that we should have. You know, we kind of let society take its position on that, and that, you know, you see the effects from it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm happy we, you know, came up with this idea for this podcast, for this, you know, what we're doing right now, because even listening to our conversation now, we're so contradictory. You know, we contradict ourselves.
Yeah.
And we kind of talk about stuff and we explain stuff out and we're like, well, maybe. And, you know, we kind of turn our heads. And that's exactly why we built this channel, is to just figure out, you know, we're very normal males. We're very normal people. We're just so normal. And I feel like our mindset and how we're thinking about things is a lot of people. A lot of people are, you know, terrified, hard at speaking about these things. They don't want to, you know, figure out the correct way to do it. They just want to be pushed by society in one direction, but they know it's not the right direction, but they're worried about if they listen or hear or anything else. And we are too. Yeah. You know, we're scared about it too, and that's exactly why we did this, because we do not know the right way to talk about things or the right way to speak about things. We're so naive. And not only naive, we actually have also, though, really good perspectives that in situations that we faced and what we want and who we're trying to become. But it's like with all this chatter over here and all this chatter over here, and you know what you've actually learned in life and what you want to put onto your kids, what is the right way, what's the right formats. And I feel like so many people are struggling with those types of questions right now of how to raise your kid. Yeah, I know. I mean,
I've got 2 of them myself, and I ask myself every day, like, how can I be a better father? How can I put my best foot forward for the kids? And I still don't feel like maybe some days I do enough as I should. So, you know, there's downing days. There's days where you feel like you did a great job and, you know, the kids are happy and they feel that you feel the love, you see the happiness. But then there's days where you're like, fuck, I feel like a shitty dad.
Yeah.
So it's an up and down roller coaster of life. I mean, you know.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out, you know, how do I make my roller coaster
a little bit more
pretty high? And then stay where you're so excited on that drop. You know that just like with the roller coaster thing, I never want to get back down to where I'm down and then I'm like climbing, and I'm scared, and then I'm at the top and it's super exciting and then we're going down and it's really exciting. I want to just, how do we stay here?
Yeah.
You know, how do we stay right at that tip where you're like, oh,
the great times are coming. Yeah.
Because I know there's going to be ups and downs, and I know there's going to be these things, but how do you just keep pushing it? How do you keep growing it and constantly making it better? And one great thing, I want to talk about this. I need to take a restroom break real quick.
Dude, I was just about to say I have to pee too.
Don't yell.
I'm so sorry. That was so crazy. I was just about to say the same thing.
But I want to talk about Adam Sandler, this new movie he came out with.
Yes.
You know, I told you, I saw it. I told you to go watch it. He has his whole entire family in it. So we're going to take a quick timeout.
Hold on. I just got to say how crazy it was that you have to pee. As soon as you were going to finish with that sentence, I was literally about to be like, guys, we're going to take a quick pee break.
We're going to go cross some swords.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Oh! Sorry
old
about
man,
that,
old man sit down noises there. Those are...
I'm not going to lie. That was the longest pee I've had in a while.
Classic dad noises. Whew. Had to...
That old... the closer you get to your 30s, the more and more you make those noises.
I noticed that. I've been noticing it a lot.
I feel like I've always made old man noises, though, in this weird way. Like, y'all used to make fun of me for that. You're like, why are you always making these old men like that?
You kind
getting up.
You just kind of do like the...
No, but getting back onto it, I just wanted to talk about this movie.
Oh, man. It was a good movie.
Yeah, you are not so invited.
You are so not invited to my bar mitzvah. You gotta add that little New York Jewish undertone to it.
I loved this movie. It is a bit corny, I won't lie, but the fact that Adam Sandler, and I originally thought that Adam Sandler kind of came up for this movie because it just seems like such
an Adam Sandler movie.
An Adam Sandler ideal movie.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, a child throwing a big bar mitzvah party and, you know, it goes through the dilemmas of what teenagers are facing, but do it in this very Jewish way. I don't know. I really loved it.
It was great. It was great. Well, apparently the book was written quite a while ago.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I thought it was Adam Sandler that did it. It was actually based off a book, and then this director that directed Crush and everything, he saw Adam Sandler and was like, Adam Sandler. Or no, he actually saw his daughters. He wanted Adam Sandler's daughters first to be in the role.
Yeah.
Which I thought was crazy, and then Adam Sandler came after, and then it involved his wife. So you have Adam Sandler, his wife, the 2 kids. I mean, it just seems really phenomenal on how they did it.
Yeah, they really involved everybody, and that's something, you know, we want to create that better family structure. That's a perfect example of it. Like, bring your kids to work with you kind of stuff. Like, we're going to make sure everybody's involved, and he's setting them up for success. Like, his daughter now, after this movie, beautiful young woman. She is going to have an amazing... Both of his daughters are beautiful young women.
The older one had so many funny
scenes.
One-liners
She is her dad in female form.
Yeah.
And she's going to have a great career. But I think the younger one is even going to go higher and have an even better career.
Well, I think maybe she wants it more, but I think also, you know, the movie was based around a 14-year-old girl. She's young, she's 14.
Exactly.
And everything. It wasn't based around a 16. So you got to wonder.
I need a spin-off, though, of the Friends. I need a spin-off of the older daughter and the Friends.
The older daughter and the friend.
I need it.
To me, they were some of the funniest people in it.
I need it.
Just when she would yell at the dad and be like, okay, Dad, I love you. Or like, I tried alcohol for the first time the other day.
And he's like, what? I didn't like it, don't worry.
And he's just sitting there like,
okay.
And just lets it happen. I kind of want my daughter to be like that.
Yeah, like so open with just being able to tell you what they're doing and how they're living life,
just
and
so
it's like
direct, and you're just like, we'll talk about this later.
Exactly, and like they're sitting there and he's discussing, and like the daughter's so open with him, it's so funny, and he's talking like, and you weren't even that crazy, and then she's like, and that's gaslighting, by the way, Dad. And he's like talking to her friend, he's like, you just call me by my real name. You just call both of us by our real names. Don't ever say. And he's like, that's gaslighting.
But that older daughter and how she talks to Adam Sandler, I would love that.
Love that relationship. And I hope that's how they are off the camera too. Like it wasn't just a portray. And I feel like that's how they are because it came off very genuine.
It was, when you saw the whole family dynamic, it just came off like they're actually a family. It just works so well. And Adam Sandler, I thought he was going to be a bigger part.
I did too.
He was a big part in it, but he had way less comedic roles, where he gave majority of all those funny roles
to his kids.
His kids are like these little scenes or these little other people. I just thought it was so funny how they put that movie together and how they involved the whole family. I thought it was great. Me personally, the fact that they did it in this whole... I have never once seen a movie from a Jewish teenage perspective. I'm not going to lie, because they were in a Jewish school, right?
Yes.
Is that what Jewish schools are like?
I don't know. I come from a Jewish generations many ago, so I don't practice Judaism.
In
but
my head, I feel like Jewish schools would be way more strict than Catholic schools.
Probably.
But
they didn't seem that bad.
That school looked like not only a fun school, probably one of the most progressive schools I've ever seen. The teacher in there,
definitely.
The teacher, how she would sing everything. She was like, "Well, when you do this," and just to...
Yes, you may go pee-pee.
Yeah, yes, you may go pee-pee. I'm gonna be pee-pee. You got to be quickly. It was so funny.
It was funny. It explains a lot of the teachers in today's society.
I want to know, though, is that how Jewish schools are? Because if you grew up going to Jewish schools, or if you go to a Jewish school now, or if your kids go to Jewish schools now,
let me know, because if so, shalom. Yeah. I'm sending my kid.
It seems, I don't know, it seems fun. But I know you were, you brought up a little bit, because I was talking about how great the movie was, and I personally didn't catch any of the things.
I'm an Easter egg guy, so I like to see little things in movies. I pick those details out.
Because I thought the movie was strictly making fun of the wokeness generation, because those two girls in it, every time they were like, oh, climate change, oh, this, it was more made fun of, and it was more this. But then you were also talking about, well, no, there was some things that,
didn't need to be there.
Yeah, that were just like, why was that? But was that intentionally put in to highlight that type of thing? Not in a funny way, because it wasn't funny. So just kind of talk about what you were talking about with that scene in the hallway.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal. I personally, I don't think it's...
You didn't even notice it.
I didn't even notice it.
So my name's Peter Griffin, and we're going to show you what really grinds my gears. So what really kind of did it, and it made me think about it for a long part of the movie, it was about midway through. And for me personally, it just felt, there was no lead up to it. There was nothing along those lines. It was two kindergarten age girls, and they just zoom in on the little girls grabbing each other's hands and holding it. And Sandy, Adam Sandler's daughter in the movie, she kind of focuses on that. And the camera pans to it as well. And it's kind of like a cockeyed look.
It pans to her face where she's like, oh, that's interesting.
Interesting. She's kind of
It does highlight her face for a minute.
Yes.
And you can clearly see she's looking at the kids holding it. So they highlight the hands. You can clearly see she's looking at the hands. And she gives this face of, that's interesting, but they don't make any comment. She kind of gives a little smiley smirk, which is more than fine. But it did make me think, because again, I never even noticed it. I thought it was just this cute scene, and I was thinking, what's that little boy's name in the movie?
Mateo.
I was like, yeah, Mateo, you're just being this really sweet kid, and I thought it was just this really sweet scene.
Right.
And then you were like, well, they did highlight that one instance. And
it just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, why are you highlighting the 5-year-old girls
holding hands?
Which to me in my head, and I was argumenting with this to you, that's such a natural thing to me for little girls to be holding hands. They do it all the time. They skip. They do this.
It is.
They hold hands, but it is kind of like
weird that they emphasized it.
Yeah. Why was it more emphasized? And it's so innocent. It shouldn't even matter. But it's just kind of going to what we were talking about last time. Is that when little kids see this kind of thing and see that, and it's not that particular scene in any kind of way that makes it. It's just like.
I'm not saying watching two kindergarten kids hold hands is going to turn your kid into
Yeah, we're not saying that in any kind of way because it's so innocent.
Yeah.
It's so innocent.
There's no anything sexual about the scene or anything that I'm going to go out and boycott and protest this movie over. But it was just a moment of why?
But you just see Hollywood highlighting it more and more with young kids.
Exactly. And it's
really
but why?
Kids.
I can understand, with the 14-year-olds and them having the sleepover and asking, hey, what kind of boys are you into? And she's like, well, I'm talking about what boys. I don't really like any boys right now. And then they're like, oh, well, do you like girls? And she's like, no, I'm straight. And some of the girls are like, oh, yeah, a couple of us are straight too.
That seemed fine.
That's okay.
That seemed very fine.
That's normal kind of conversations for 14-year-old girls.
Those are teen. Yeah, that seems very fine to me.
But we didn't need to focus it on the 5-year-old kids. And I don't know if maybe that was the message they were sending.
Well, that's what I wonder. I just wonder.
Why was it there?
Yeah, I just wonder because you see Hollywood putting those little Easter eggs more and more in. So why was it highlighted in that way? Why did they ask her, hey, can you look down at the girls holding hands and
react to it?
And react to it in this,
positive, affirming way, almost kind of like yeah, that's normal.
Well, but it also maybe could have been a face of, was that normal?
Like starting off questioning it, but then reverting yourself back to oh no, that's acceptable, and then kind of smiling it off.
But even in a religious Jewish community,
it's
this
not normal.
Is okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're saying in the thing this is okay. So I do kind of wonder if that was highlighted for a particular reason.
There is a reason behind it. I mean, you don't just.
But it's such a good
emphasize.
I feel like now we're bringing it to.
This whole trashing of the movie. I don't want to take away.
It's an amazing
movie.
Watch it with your family.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from the message.
I can't recommend the movie enough to people because again,
to fathers with raising teenage daughters, it is a great observation of a little look into the glass of probably what your teenage daughter's life's going to look like.
Yeah, but I can't recommend it enough. I mean, I personally, when I was watching it, I didn't see anything. I thought it was more making fun of kids and how they are, and maybe what that scene was. Maybe that scene was making fun of it. Now, that dude did make the Crush movie, which is like a teenage boy going after another teenage boy or whatever the case may be.
He is, the director themselves are a queer Jewish person. So I mean, I don't think they would be trashing their own beliefs and values there.
Yeah, I don't think they were. So you wonder, was that just put in to highlight, hey, us in the Jewish community,
we accept this.
We're gay as well. This is
acceptable. By all means, perfectly okay with all of that type of stuff. Again, for me, as I'm watching this movie, and I think it's been an incredible movie this entire time, and then I watch that, and now for the last 45 minutes of the movie,
for those little other Easter eggs.
and I'm looking for other things, and then it just keeps coming up to me why did you highlight 5-year-olds holding hands? What is this going to come back later in the movie? Do I need to remember this scene for a certain reason?
Yeah.
So it threw me. It threw me off really bad because it was just something where I was watching such an incredible, heartfelt movie, and then just this such random, no situation needed type of scene comes in there, and you're like, now it's distracted you from the rest of this whole movie. Is something else going to play off of this? Do I need to remember this? Is it just trying to push a message in my face real quick? I don't know. It was subtle. It was innocent. It didn't harm me. It didn't anger me in any type of way, really.
You were just wondering...
But it confused the fuck out of me.
You were just wondering why did they highlight it
exactly
in that moment? What was the purpose?
Maybe somebody can tell me why, but I don't see a purpose and a reason why. Can you highlight why 14-year-olds might be experimenting between being bisexual and being straight completely, or being lesbian, bisexual, or straight? Yeah. That's normal for a 14-year-old kid to probably go through.
Yeah.
They all have those feelings, I would imagine. 5-year-olds are not thinking about dating other 5-year-old girls. Yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
I don't want it to think that they held hands like that because they're in some type of relationship.
But it kind of is. I mean, I remember being in kindergarten and I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend, Jade. I mean, so if I'm over here because when we were young kids, seeing influences of gay people weren't a normal thing. So when we're copying, we see our mom and dad, and we know to like the other woman. So it is kind of one of those things, if you know now, which is more likely to, if you know older gay people and you see it and you yourself are like, well, I find, Lily much more pretty than Bobby, and so maybe I like Lily more at 5 years old. If I'm okay to have, and this is one of those.
You think about that as a 5-year-old.
Well, but here's the thing. I thought about it. I thought about having a girlfriend at 5 years old. I remember being a 5-year-old with that girl thinking, like, if we grew up and became husband and wife, would it be like this? So you can't say, you're not thinking about those things, because you are.
I mean, I think it's definitely a portrayal that we were taught as children to, like, you're going to go play house, you're going to be, you're going to be the husband, you're going to be the wife. It's kind of the regular old everyday. And I get that we're pushing a lot more of this, making it normal that these types of people do exist, because they do. Again, I don't know what the message was behind it. And it's what throws me off so bad, is that there was this amazing movie that spewed such a great, heartfelt message.
And the scene, too, was just this really cute
scene like Mateo just being a great kid.
Yeah.
And just helping these kids out to learn.
Was it highlighted in that
and then why? So, like, it just confused me. It didn't make sense to me. And if it's going to be something that, like, we continue to see in future movies, I don't know if I'm going to be able to support those types of things, because I want...
Where's it going to go?
Where's it going to go from there, Like, that's something we talked about last time. Like, we're going to start to see, you give these people an inch, they're going to take a mile. All it starts is with kids holding hands, and then next thing it's 5-year-olds, boys kissing each other on a camera.
I got to be devil advocate on this, because I think about it in the sense, when you see like a 3-year-old girl or boy and everything that are friends, and one of them kisses the other one on the cheek, you think it's the cutest
little innocent thing.
But my thing is, now we're gonna go and be like with 3-year-old boys. If my 3-year-old boy and his friend are playing together, and his friend does something really nice for him, and he knows that kisses are a good thing, and he goes and kisses on the cheek, I'm just going to be like, no, don't be kissing them on the cheek? Because in my head, that's such an innocent...
It's such an innocent thing.
They're not
I
thinking
agree.
They're not thinking about it in any way.
That's why I'm questioning it.
But that's my thing is, when you see it, you're not in any way, what's going on here? What's this? Are those parents pushing that little boy to... You're just like, oh, that kid's being nice to that little kid.
Right.
And maybe they were just highlighting that. I don't know. But
that's where we need a little bit of context with it.
But I don't want to, if my kid, I don't know, if my little boy is walking across the playground holding another little boy's hand, I don't want to immediately walk up to him now and be like, no, that's not okay, because now he's going to now start thinking about, well, why is that not okay? Why is this? And you don't want him to do that, because you just want him, you don't want him to see, grown men holding hands and be like, no, that's not okay, because it is okay. It's more than okay. So yeah, it is kind of confusing. Like, is it highlighting something else, or is it highlighting just the innocent of kids?
Exactly. Like, where was...
Because it could just be highlighting the innocent of kids.
And it really could. And maybe I'm reading into it way too much, because coming from, though, a point of view where I can know what type of person this director is and what type of values and opinions they want to push across, it comes across to me like they're trying to send a message of, like, look, this is even normal for 5-year-olds to be doing. Yeah. Like, it made it seem like these kids were in a relationship, girlfriend and girlfriend, and they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not... Like, kids, yes, they'll play husband and wife, and they'll play house or pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend and stuff like that, but it's like, I don't know, in that situation, it's like you'll pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend for the day or something, and it made it seem like these two little girls were, like, side by side. Maybe she saw in those two little girls, it emphasized that because it reminded her of her and Lydia as friends when they were little and they were always so close. Maybe that's what it was referencing.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And she saw that and was like, oh man, I miss my best friend.
I know what, I take back everything I said now. I think it's highlighting that.
And it might be.
I
And
think
it
it's
might be.
highlighting that.
But put some context in it.
Because
Maybe
you know what?
show her maybe show her looking at those two little kids holding a hand and have a quick flashback of her and Lydia's little girls holding hands. And then I'd be like, oh my God, that was so cute. That made so much sense.
You know what? It seems like
It's starting to make a little bit more sense to me now when I'm saying it that way.
Like it could be more.
I think that might be what it was. I think that might be because she was just coming off of a situation like thinking about Lydia and how like everything's happening and how she's pissed at her.
This is a good thing to think about. Don't just immediately, like we are right now, don't be immediately married to your opinion because
now we're talking about it and I was starting to think like, damn, maybe she was just missing Lydia.
Yeah, maybe because the whole thing.
Maybe now I got worked up over fucking nothing and it's still a great movie with no problems. And
how do you avoid doing that? How do you look at it from all these different perspectives before you go to your kid and you're like, hey, don't watch this movie because it highlights this thing. You don't want to be telling people it highlights this thing when really, now that I'm seeing it in that sense,
maybe that's what it was.
That's probably exactly what it was.
That's probably exactly what it was, and I feel like a fucking idiot. But that's how you have to be willing to accept things in life, I would take it. Like,
do what we're doing. Don't be married to your opinion. If you're kind of thinking about something, work it through.
Talk about it.
Yeah, talk it out, because that is...
And it's good to get somebody that does have a different opinion. Like, you and I are always kind of devil's advocates to each other because it is going to be, I have a very strong opinion on something, but you're going to make me explain it. You're not just going to let me have my opinion and be like, wow, dude, that's a great fucking opinion. Stand by it. You're like, why? Why is that your opinion? Yeah. How is that your opinion? Yeah. Where did you become to that conclusion that made you get to this opinion? So that's very productive. I think a lot of people need to have differing opinions in today's world because we surround ourselves in echo chambers where everybody agrees with the same shit. So of course we're all just going to hear the same thing.
Yeah.
I love that about us.
Yeah, do what we did. Kind of argue about it, and then maybe both of you are like, "Oh shit,
fuck, I'm stupid as shit,
an idiot."
Exactly. So
I think that is what that meant. Now
that we're actually sitting down and looking at it and observing,
I think that's exactly what.
I think that's exactly what it was because she did just come off that whole like thinking about Lydia type thing.
She literally walked out of the room thinking about it. Just got done seeing her, and then that happened. Yeah, that to me makes so much more sense, her seeing two little friends of girls and being like, oh, damn, that was me and Lydia. That's totally what it means. You're an asshole.
I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole.
But hey,
that's the type of stuff that I think people need, because we all jump to these conclusions. We're all headline readers now, we just read the fucking headlines and it's like, I'm going to believe everything that headline says, but then you'll go read the full story and you're like, well, that headline wasn't true at all.
Yeah.
They're just drawing me in with this one little sentence or one little situation, and I'm totally attached, and I've formed this whole opinion. I'm guilty of it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at that, as you've seen. But like you mentioned, we can't be married to it, because if we don't have that open ability to discuss it like you and I just did, I would have probably told other people, hey, fuck that movie, because they are just sitting here talking about kids, sexualizing kids and stuff like this.
Not the case. And
that's not the case at all. And I would have just looked like a total fucking dumbass to the point where eventually maybe the director of the goddamn movie would have had to have come out and said, look, dude, this is what this was about. If you want me to explain the context for your dumbass, I will. And gladly enough, we don't have to deal with that.
You got to be able to work it out. And that's exactly what this whole show is about, is working out stuff. We are dumb. We don't know. And that's exactly what this is. We want advice from other people. If you see that when we explain something, hey guys, y'all probably should be looking at it from this perspective, we want that. We want to change our opinion. We want to change our thought process, because sometimes our thought process seems extremely strong and correct.
One-sided a lot of the time.
Sometimes one-sided, and it may not be. And that's exactly why we're here, is to figure out what is the best route to go about things. How do we explain things? How do we work things out? How do we talk through things with your family, with your friends, to not just be stuck on this one ideology, but let that progress, let that, change over time, let your views change over time, because I may be stuck in my way, but I want to be open, because if I know I'm stuck in my way, my kid's going to be stuck in their way too, and I don't want to show my kid to only be stuck in their way.
Right.
And one thing I wanted to bring up, we kind of went into, that went into a lot longer than I thought. I also wanted to bring up, because it had me thinking about something watching that movie, her going through this challenge with her friend, all these things were happening. The parents were unaware of everything. The mom sent the video to the other mom. they were all unaware. They could kind of tell something was going on. The mom finally understood something's going on, but they would walk in a lot of the time and just be like, yo, you're doing this. And she'd be like, no, I don't want to do this. And that's...
They didn't press someone off.
Yeah, and so, but to me, sometimes your kids don't want to have to explain themselves. They don't want to have to, acknowledge what is going on. And I didn't either as a teenager. I kept so many things from my kids, but you could clearly tell... Yeah, from my parents. But you could clearly tell that I would be going through something.
Yeah.
So, my question to everybody out there watching this, what is that advice? When your kid's going through something, you clearly see them going through something, but they're not willing to come to you and talk to you and open up with you. Maybe it's, maybe it's just too embarrassing. Maybe it's something you just don't want them to know. What type of advice do you give your kid, not knowing anything, not knowing any context, but you see them going through something, how do you approach that to make them not feel like victimized or anything, but also make them, want to speak to you and open up about it, or just maybe giving them that quick advice of, hey, if you're going through something, I don't know what it is, I don't know what's happening, but this is what I would do in any situation.
Yeah.
Just good advice that can go for any situation that your kid might be going through, because I think about that a lot. So many people never asked me what was going on when I was real young and was struggling with my mom and was dropping out and doing all the drugs. No one ever came up and was like, what the fuck are we doing?
Right.
Like, I see you're going through this. This is my piece of advice to you to hopefully get you out of all this. Because it wasn't me coming to people for advice.
We won't.
Yeah,
most kids won't. They feel like they got to tackle the world by themselves. That's how we felt anyway. It's like us against the world. Bring it the fuck on.
Yeah, because it just showed her kind of just coming. The mom gave her a little bit of advice at one point in time, but it just kind of showed her coming to the realization at the end on her own, and the parents helping her out to complete that realization and make it successful. So I do kind of wonder, is that the way? Just let your kids figure it out for themselves, give them no advice? Is that the better way? But you also don't want your kid to have the sense like I did when I was younger, like no one even cares what's going on with me.
Right.
No one's asking me. So I don't know. That's a big question I have.
That'll be something we search for the answer on, because even as a parent, I don't approach every one of those situations correctly with my kid.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will be upset or angry or something, and I'll say something to her, and rather than like sitting down and figuring out what went wrong with the situation, I'm like berating her in the fact of like, you're not stupid, so why did you do this?
Yeah.
And now it's like she's not going to tell me why the fuck she just did that, because she just came off as stupid. So now she's embarrassed because I think she did something stupid. She doesn't want to explain why she did it, because then that's going to come off as stupid to her. So it's like I have that issue, and I'm still trying to train myself. Just yesterday, we were over at some friend's house, and we were all playing with little Nerf guns. We were having a great time. Me, the dad, Ella, her little friend, the son. We were all running around the house shooting each other with Nerf guns.
Awesome.
Having a great time.
Love that.
Well, we're all putting all the Nerf guns up, and all of a sudden we hear, doom, ah, and a little kid screaming, and I run into the room, and their son is on the ground crying, holding his face. Ella shot him right in the eye, like point blank with the Nerf gun. And rather than asking Ella what...
She Han Solo'd him?
She Han Solo'd his ass.
She shot first.
Well, that's what I anticipated. She shot first, and so I went in there angry. I mean, I just started kind of yelling at her. I mean, almost in front of everybody, which really embarrassed her, because we're in front of these other people. And, I was like, why would you shoot him in the face? You're not stupid. Why did you do that? Yeah. And she just broke down after that and started crying and went and like sat into a corner. And I didn't ask her why she did it first. And then we got down and the kids started like standing up, and the parents kind of took a better approach with him than they did with me, obviously because he's hurt, so they're not going to be yelling at him and screaming at him. But they're like, what happened? Why did she shoot you in the face? And he admitted, well, I shot her in the cheek first, and she just turned around and shot me back, and it hit him in the eye.
So now
now I'm a fucking asshole.
Yeah, now you're the asshole.
Because I just went in and immediately just right on her ass and was just started yelling at her, and I felt so awful after that. Like, I'm looking at my wife like, let's just go home. Like, let's just fucking leave. We're still supposed to go to the pool and have a good time with everybody.
But now you're embarrassed.
Now I'm embarrassed, and I just want to go home. And so, I have to go in there and essentially apologize to her. Like, I should have listened to you and asked you what happened rather than immediately just jumping down your throat and thinking that you were just doing something. Because we had just told them previously, stop shooting each other.
Yeah.
And so he did it to her, she did it to him, it ended up turning bad, and she was the only one that got flack for it. That's not fair to her.
Yeah.
I realized that. I mean, yes, she still should be in a little bit of trouble because we told both of you to stop.
Yeah, but you don't want to go in there berating her in front of her friend and in front of the parents.
When he was the one that also was partaking in doing that stuff.
And so that's why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here, because I want to better myself as a father, and I'm sure as you become a father, you don't want those situations where you can almost approach it calmly and just say, hey, why did this just happen? Yeah. Tell me what happened. And rather than everybody freaking out, like, dude, I thought we were about to have to take this kid to the hospital. Dude, these were strong-ass Nerf guns.
Yeah.
So I was very concerned.
Right in the eye?
Right in the eye. I mean, like, had the little red spot on his eye and everything.
Dang.
Yeah, dude. Like, it was bad. So I felt so bad.
If I was that dad, I would see you been like, hey, man, where's your checkbook at?
Exactly. Like, I figured I was going to be busting out the checkbook, but everybody was really cool about it. We all went to the pool. They had a good time afterwards. They made up and were good friends and everything, but it's that type of situation.
And it wasn't even one of those things that they were mad at each other.
No, they were just
playing around.
They were playing around, and something bad happened.
Someone got hurt, and you reacted in a poor way.
That's what we want to focus on, though. We want to approach these situations better. We want to be able to be better people, better role models, because it doesn't look good as me as a father yelling at that little one, because I also have a 2-year-old who now just witnessed her older sister getting yelled at like that by her dad. And then her being upset about it. She knows because she walks in at 2 years old. Oh, what's wrong, Ella? What's wrong?
She does.
And so she knows that something happened. And even at a 2-year-old trying to comprehend that stuff, I don't want her to be fearful of any situation where she's like, I can't go and tell dad what just happened because he's just going to berate me and yell at me.
Yeah, you don't want her to break a toy and be like, I got to now hide the toy under the bed.
Exactly.
And make sure it's all...
Exactly. Yeah. So I can't train them young to think that way. I'm trying to better myself as a person to try to not react in those type of ways.
Because they're just gonna see it.
Yes.
And know, and that's how they kind of learn, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how they're gonna learn is just, hey, if I react in this kind of way, this is probably how you'll react later on. Because that's how it was for me. You know, my dad reacted a lot of the time with like yelling and like getting real angry and stuff. And so my teenage years and my early 20s, that's exactly how I would react to different. I'm so good. I feel like my like emotional IQ is so high where I can keep calm in a lot of situations and just speak directly instead of getting amped up. And I still have those problems where I get super amped up and I
get fired up
and I want to punch something and I'm like, I can't control my voice. You get those, but I've done so much better. But I do feel like in my teenage years and when I had all those anger problems, I was constantly being super violent towards everybody and always wanting to get in fights. It's probably because I learned that from my dad, you know, if that's the way to talk to someone when you're angry, when something's going wrong, you got to be a little bit more aggressive with it. And so I was that way. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to teach my kid, you know, when you're coming at it, you know, let's work through it, let's figure it out, let's ask questions. But yeah,
train us, please. We need help.
Train us.
We need a lot of help.
Yeah, and just what's the right advice? You know, we're doing good in life. You know, and you're doing great as a parent. But yeah, it's as your kid
those little moments like that,
as your kid is getting older, you know, just how can I be better? How can I set my kid up for the proper success, my wife up for the proper success to be able to teach that kid and be a big influence in her life.
Like now if my kid murders somebody and wants to hide the body, she feel like she can't tell me because I'm going to be like, dude, are you freaking stupid?
It's a good point.
It's a good point. So I need her to come to me and be like, Dad, we got to hide the body. Like that's literal type of.
What are you doing in that situation?
Yeah, no, that one's scary.
What are you doing in that situation when your kid comes to you? Hey, honestly, I got to tell you, man,
I'm protecting my kid.
I'm not.
What?
Hell no.
If your kid came to you and was like, "Hey, I murdered somebody."
Hell no.
Damn, that is a tough one though.
Hell no.
I don't know. I'm probably helping.
If my kid comes to me and says I murdered someone, I'm gonna be like, all right, let's get in the car. I'm going to drive you somewhere. I'm going to drive them straight to the fucking police station and make sure my ass is, I don't know, man. It's one of those things.
You hear it all the parents all the time helping their kids out when they do some sketch shit.
Those parents
go to jail.
Fucked.
I know, every time.
If my kid murders someone and comes to me, I just murdered someone, I'm kicking my kid in the chest.
It's different, though.
I'm kicking my kid in the chest. I'm putting handcuffs on him myself because I got a pair of handcuffs because we're weird people. But I'll put a pair of handcuffs.
Dad, why are these handcuffs fuzzy?
Don't worry about it. You're going to the police station. You know, I that is one of those things. If your kid comes to you with one of those hard situations, I think if my kid comes to me and be like, hey, I'm selling drugs, I don't know how to get out of it and everything, I'm helping them through that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's get you out of this situation. But if my kid comes to me with something that can't be turned around, you know, like death of a person, yeah, you're going to jail, buddy.
Oh, dude, I think it's a different thing once you actually have a kid. Like once you physically have that child and you're like, okay, I'm not going to let anything happen to this kid. Like, you have to realize,
but if you're
that's your child,
but
you will never see them again.
Can you not do a better job of maybe getting your child out of that situation if you are, you know, not held in contempt from legal
Maybe
you
we should get great advice from people on how to not make your kid turn into a mass murderer.
Yeah, well,
that would be great.
It's like that dude that killed his girlfriend and like buried her body and everything, and the parents were possibly, allegedly, we don't know. I don't know if it was help.
They definitely knew some shit.
This was one of those things that were so big, I did not even care. My wife was so involved into it, hearing about it.
They definitely knew some shit.
But when you hear about the parents and possibly helping out this kid, you know, you don't know if that's the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do. It is one of those situations, though, because if my kid comes to me and is like, yeah, I just killed my girlfriend, you know, I don't know what to do. Bro, you just killed your girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you killed your buddy in a fight, like y'all were in a fight or something. You killed your girlfriend. You, right now in this moment, are not my son. You know, you're my son, and again, I could be looking at this in a very wrong way. I could be looking at this in a.
I think it'll change once you have kids.
I have no kids, so I don't know. But I could only see myself as if my kid comes to me, you know. And what would y'all do? Because if my kid comes to me with a situation like that, I only see myself being able to better help my child if I am held out of the legal system, so I can then hire the right people to look into the right things to see what we can do to get my kid in the best position. Because if I just try to get my kid to run to Mexico or Canada or blah, 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 most likely we're going to get caught. And, you know, I'm now going to be in prison. My kid's going to be in prison for that exact same thing that he did before, plus running from the police. So how am I helping my kid in that situation in any way? Rather than if he came to me, I murdered someone, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, we're going to have to turn you in. We're going to have to turn you in. We're going to figure it out. You know? Me personally, I think that's the better. He's going to be my son, but if you murder someone out of malicious, especially malicious content that may have been either planned or hateful or something like that, no.
So I'm glad I just have girls. They're not bad as serial killers. They can get there.
I don't know, man. It's always the women killing the husbands.
Hey.
It's always the women poisoning the husbands.
But it's usually because they're abusive pieces of shit.
And then you do hear, like me personally, when my wife is watching a lot of these crime shows, so many times it's the mother that takes the children's life.
Yeah.
So many times and there's a lot of times that it's the father that takes, but
it's even.
I hear
it's even ground.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's like girls are better or worse. I think girls are just better at hiding how they kill people. You know, I think girls, when they say women are smarter, I think they hide that to murder us men sometimes. You know, I think it's one of those things, because you heard about like that girl that poisoned the husband with pine sol in his coffee over a long period of time. You know, kind of genius. Or like the women that put potassium in their husband's mouth, like little drops of mouth. Don't get ideas from this, guys. And it gives them heart attacks and stuff, and it's almost untraceable because it goes away really quickly. You know, like, you hear that stuff.
Meticulous stuff. We're just like,
Where
I'm going to
men-
beat you with this
where,
stick.
Yeah, meticulously crafted stuff. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
More thought out.
Way more thought out. Where I feel like when you're like, no, men kill women way more than women kill.
Well, they do.
Yes,
they just do it like out of anger, though.
1,000% out of anger and everything. But I think women get away with a lot of it. You know, I think there are some women out there listening to this and be like, that's me.
I'm gonna do that.
No, not even I did that. Not even I'm gonna do that. Be like,
I did that.
I've done that to 5 husbands and I've collected all that money. Don't worry about it. Just shut up and stop talking about this subject.
We might be getting some lawsuits coming our way. Now, we didn't mention anybody by name, but
I don't think we mentioned anybody.
I know a few. Just kidding, I don't.
But it's just, yeah, I do. You kind of think about that. You're like, oh, well, my little girl's not going to grow up to have the mindset of a boy.
I hope she's not a serial killer. But as many serial killer shows as my wife watches, my daughter might be a serial killer.
She could just be listening. That's another good question. Is it good to be listening to all these crime shows in front of your kids when they're able to hear that stuff?
She loves freaking the ID channel and stuff like that.
Who, Ella?
Yeah.
I remember listening or watching it when I was a kid.
Dateline. She watches a lot of Dateline.
Does it not make you have like some weird fantasies as a child you're not supposed to be having? And not like sexual or anything like that, just when you're thinking about things going to bed at night and you're like, why? Because I think about it all the time, being like 7, 8 years old and thinking about weird sexual things that shouldn't have been in my head. And I think about, like, I try to play back my childhood and, like, where did I hear that or learn that back then because I remember thinking about those things. Mm-hmm. I remember, like, sitting in a bathtub thinking, you know, really weird things at a young age. And I'm like, where did I hear that from? My mom always had the ID channel on, you know, always had those, you know, crime shows on, would always have, and you would hear them and you would listen to them, and then you're just thinking about rape, or you're thinking about, you know, people being tied down, or you're thinking about heads being chopped off at 7 years old and just at nighttime trying to go to bed, which you probably shouldn't even have any of those kind of thoughts. Right. And it's not that your parent is sitting there saying, oh, sit here and watch this. You know, it's just you're playing on the ground with your toys and your mom's watching it in the background, or your dad's watching something in the background, and you're just kind of gradually looking up and you see this murder scene, and then all of a sudden you're going to bed like, yo, what if that was me, and you're picturing yourself getting murdered, you know?
It's pretty terrifying. Pretty terrifying. Yeah. Maybe that's something we can touch on a little bit on our next episode. It's about time we start wrapping up here, but...
Yeah, so main points of this whole thing, you know, what kind of advice are you going to give your kid when they're struggling to tell you what is highlighted in movies, what's not highlighted in movies? How should you go about thinking about that? Have the conversation like we are. Don't be just so one-sided on it. Again, I didn't see it anyway. I love that movie. Go watch it. You are so not invited to my bar mitzvah. It is.
You are so not invited to my bar mitzvah.
It's a great movie. I loved it every single last second. I think Adam Sandler and his family did an amazing job. The only reason you just wanted to touch on that point, trying to figure out, I think we figured it out.
It just didn't make sense to me, and now it makes sense to me.
I think we figured it out, and I'm glad we came to that conclusion. And know what? It still may be a weird highlighted thing that we don't know, but it makes so much more sense to me now that she looks at it coming out of the room, and I kind of hate that you even made me think about it in the other way. So watch out for that, people.
Yeah, watch out for toxic people like myself. They're just awful.
Because sometimes you can't just be toxic without even knowing it. Not you, just anybody.
Exactly.
Anybody can have this opinion in their
head. I immediately turn to, this is the worst of the fucking worst, rather than, oh, maybe it was just some little innocent type of thing.
Super innocent.
So, yeah, maybe not approach every situation so intensely.
But Adam Sandler, the director, the kids, the wife, everybody.
A+ fucking movie. Go watch it.
A little corny, but what Adam Sandler movie isn't just a little bit corny, but man, as far as like a family movie to actually watch that makes you feel like you're watching a movie back in like Freaky Friday, how it's kind of good for adults, good for children, and it's actually just based around teenagers.
Yeah.
It's definitely that. I loved it.
Dads, definitely watch it if you have daughters. It's going to be a very good learning experience for what's to come in the future, because this is just a little glimpse of the type of emotional things that we're going to be dealing with these kids. So
scary.
It's an amazing movie. Give Adam Sandler as an entire family props. I
give the director props.
I give the director props for
reading the book and being like, I need to make this movie, and that is the cast I need. Because honestly, if it was made with
anybody else, it wouldn't have been as genuine.
It wouldn't have been even close.
It wouldn't have. The fact that they were able to involve the whole family, like we said, that's the type of structure we want to have.
That's what I want, man. I want to be able to raise my kids to be like, okay, my dad's doing this badass. He's doing it so correctly.
Let's do it too.
I want to try that, Dad. And I'm like, yeah, let's get into it. And you know what? You never saw his kids at a young age.
No.
I think that's a really appropriate age. If your kid really wants to get into that kind of stuff, get into that acting, I think that's a super appropriate age. And again, to the older daughter, she wasn't the star, but to me, funniest person.
Funny. I need a spinoff.
In that, I need a spinoff or a movie of that daughter, because just her timing on things was so funny. I loved it. I loved it.
It's tough to do in today's world to still hit things and be funny and not be controversial.
Yeah.
And she was right on the fucking money every time. We're going to be right on the money every time with these questions, these observations. So give us some opinions, give us some feedback.
Advice. Tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Make us look dumb, make us look smart. We don't know.
We'll find it out. We appreciate you guys listening here today. We will see you next time.
Boom. Let's get out of here, man.